Okay, so at first I was resistant to it because we had done this thing called Blackboard for so long. And really, honestly, it just looked like my classroom on a Blackboard online learn. It didn't look any different. I felt like I'd done all this work to get nowhere. And then the school system said, we're done with Blackboard. And so all this work, it's almost like a baby that I put out there, and I never got to see the baby grow or anything. Someone else took my baby. And then I want to say about 8 years ago, they showed us Schoology. And I tell you, all of us were resistant. And then I had a teacher say, well, have you played around? Have you just dabbled in it? And when I learned that I could integrate some of the things that we were doing, like in our textbook, with video that could enhance it, with quizzes, with extra practices, and then the students could create their own little games and activities, and then they could communicate with each other. And all I did was manage it. It's like instead of becoming the teacher, I became the manager of learning. I could create situations where they could test, get feedback, test again, get feedback. Maybe they create a test that then provides me feedback. Like it was just really neat. And so that was my impetus for doing that blended learning environment. And then the pandemic hit, and that's when it all came full circle for me. So the county had decided we needed to create some more opportunities for middle schoolers to have exploratory classes. And so one of the classes they created was an exploration of language: German, French, Latin, and Spanish. But that would be expensive to have 4 Latin teachers, an extra Latin teacher, an extra Spanish teacher. So our decision was we'll just have one teacher at each school teach it. And yeah, I was resistant at first. Like I had to learn French and German overnight because the point was to expose them to the language, not to teach them the language. And so because I'd already started this blended environment, it wasn't hard for me to say, oh, I have this virtual network of friends on Facebook that is my Latin community. Is there a Spanish community out there? Is there a German community out there? Is there a French? And then when I connected with this French community, my whole life changed. There was this group called Mani Musical. It's 2 middle school teachers, my apologies, up in Maine. And back in 2017, they had the same concern. They were like, how do we use this digital technology in a way that brings to life what we're doing in the classroom and makes everything we're doing meaningful and valuable, and something that makes or encourages or even empowers the students to go do things that we never would have thought of. And so they created this Mani Musical thing, which is March Music Madness. It's in the month of March. They have whittled down songs that are school appropriate for every age, from kindergarten all the way up to year infinite. And so it's music that's modern, it's culturally relevant, it's played on the radio in France, in Canada, in Africa, and then we listen to the music. We have a little French chat mat, and we then would talk on Facebook about the music that we were just listening to while we voted on which one we liked in French. I took this concept to my classroom, and the kids really liked it, and over the pandemic, their collaborative that started in 2017 turned into an international affair because there are other teachers like me hungry for high quality content. And so we had musicians like Looney up in Canada, and Angeli in Brussels, and Julien Doré in France, and Marc Dupré, and so many of them reached out to the Instagram account that we had on the Mani Musical, and they're like, whoa, and they're speaking in French about how they love it, and they would set up interviews, and some of the students reached out to them on Instagram, and they're talking back and forth, and some of us got to come in because Zoom blew up, and we were using Zoom to come in, ask questions. Some of it was English, some of it was in French, and it's just amazing. So anyway, I took that same concept and I said, I gotta do this with German, I gotta do this with Spanish, I gotta do this with so much. So I then took the same concept in my Latin world. I called it the Julius Caesar Music Awards, and we're doing that right now. I don't have nearly the numbers that they have right now, but I have similar numbers to where they started. And so we're listening to modern English musicians that are completely school appropriate, and we're calling it figurative language exploration, if you will. And so my students are creating lessons designed to analyze the lyric poetry that's played on the radio. And we're not the only ones doing stuff like that. There's so many creative people out there doing lots of cool things. It's just that all was why the blended was so, like, it was just integrating, like you couldn't tell like which part was the classroom part and which part was what we do at home part. It's like all together. So